Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Crushing Land. Happy to be with you here as we discuss another relevant topic for your land investing, real estate investing, just business in general, especially as we're navigating different times here in early 2024, a totally different market than it was just a year ago, and some people struggling in different things because of that. And one of the things that we've been talking about, or a number of different things that we've been talking about over the last number of weeks, is just some bad information that's been out there. And that kind of leads us to what we're going to talk about today. And maybe I'm going to date myself a little bit with this analogy, but I'm sure a lot of you are going to remember this and appreciate this. You remember those old school copy machines, right? We all remember on those big giant things. They were in offices, they were in schools, things like that, going back, whatever it was, 20 years ago now and more. But we all remember what happened if you made a copy of a copy, right? If you went in and you were like, okay, here's the original, and let's take this and let's make a copy of it, what happened? It got a little bit more fuzzy. But then what happened if you made a copy of that copy, and then a copy of that copy, and you kept going down the line? Well, maybe in school, some of you actually played with this. I remember us goofing around and doing this, 30 years ago. But when this happened, if you kept doing it, eventually it would become completely illegible, right? There was nothing even there. It just all blurred together. It was just a big bunch of black and white, and there was really nothing more to it if you kept going down that line and doing that. And that is really what we've been seeing the last few years, in particular from my vantage point from land investing, but it's true in other forms and other businesses as well, that basically people are just becoming a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, going down and trying to put information out there. And the lines are just becoming more and more blurred because of that. And it was interesting because I was watching something just a few days ago, and I was watching somebody talking about somebody that they were teaming up with or had learned from. I forget exactly how it was worded. It really doesn't matter. But basically, it was somebody that transformed their journey. And they were talking all about this and how it helped so much. And it's somebody that you could learn from as well. And this is somebody that's selling some sort of land education business. And then they're talking about how they learned from this person. And what's funny about that person was I know where that person learned. And then the person that taught them, I know where they learned. And ultimately, that person was somebody that learned from me, somebody that I had taught. And so I'm listening to this copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, right? And that's going down the line there. And this is just getting more and more blurred. And there's nothing wrong with going out there. There's nothing wrong with putting out more information. There's nothing wrong with bringing something to people and things like that. That's actually something that's very advantageous. I'm very happy for other land investors, people out there doing this the right way and all that. But the thing that we are particularly talking about in this episode is getting past the blurred lines. And when I have listened to people like this, it actually gets me a little upset. It gets me a little angry because I feel bad for the consumer that's taking in this information, because I sit there and I scratch my head and I'm like, I don't understand what in the world they're talking about. This doesn't make any sense. This information is just wrong. This won't work. And I've talked about a few of the different things that have been being propagated here over the last few episodes. But if I'm sitting there with decade plus experience, if I'm sitting there with 1,000 plus deals under my belt, if I'm sitting there as a land educator that's helping others and I'm confused and I'm saying this isn't going to work and I don't even understand what they're saying, then I feel bad for the person that's coming in straight, brand new, or just very little experience and wants to get involved and is going to get confusion thrown at them right from the very beginning. And that is one of the main things that we consistently hear and see in our business. And you don't have to take my word for it. If you're reading or if you're in the Facebook group and you're watching this, if you're on YouTube and you're watching this, join our Facebook group. If you're listening to this on the podcast, then go ahead and listen, join our Facebook group as well. And you'll see it from others in our group. One of our biggest things that we have come to us is people that were in other programs and were just confused, left with absolutely no direction, just information that didn't work, all of these different things that, like I said, I've been talking about over the last number of weeks. And then they come to us and they say, how do we do this? How do we fix it? And we're kind of starting from scratch with them to help them get their businesses really off the ground, even though they've been doing it for a little while. Maybe they're off the ground a little bit, and we're helping them to expand it and take it to the next number of levels. But whatever the case is, it's because they basically got that information, that copy of a copy of a copy of a copy going down the line. And again, this isn't something that makes me really happy seeing it out there. I'm happy to see people out there trying to get out there, trying to put information out and trying to bring something new to people. That part's good. But if you're going to do that, make sure that what you're teaching is correct. And this is a little bit different. We're talking about different things here. I don't want this to be lined up with, well, they're bringing something fresh and new and a different perspective and things like that. That's not what we're talking about. Because one of the things that we bring to you, one of the things that we show you is how we have adapted over the years with different techniques, different follow-up, different ways of reaching people, staying in front of people, all of those different things, right? So adaptation is something different. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is basically taking the exact same information and not really understanding it fully yourself, and maybe finding like a little niche in there that works, and you're trying to go down the line and you just keep going and going and going with that, but you're copying what was already there. And again, the lines are getting more blurred because of that. And that's exactly something that we're trying to help you to avoid. I was on a call just last week with some individuals. They were looking at a coaching program. They're looking at different things. And they said that was one of the things that they really appreciated. The word they actually used was clarity, right? To get clarity, it needs to be the original, right? And I'm not saying that I invented land investing. I didn't. I did not invent land investing. Nobody that's alive right now invented land investing. Land investing's been around in this country for hundreds of years. So everybody that started it is gone. They're dead, right? Nobody here invented land investing. Now, there were programs before us. There were tons of programs after us, right? But what we did was we actually focused on different aspects that we saw working over a number of years, not from a particular program, but from different strategies like that. And we developed something that really works and has worked well for us and has worked for a number of years, right? So it's an original format. Whereas, like I said, other people are coming along and I'm hearing them using the exact same wording. They're using the exact same documents and things like that, but they're not explaining it correctly because, again, copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Blurred lines. And that's what you want to avoid. So again, I'm not knocking anybody down here with anything like that. I'm not naming names. I'm not doing anything like that. But if you are out there and you are looking at getting involved in land investing and you're hearing somebody talking and it seems like there's confusion in what they're saying, if it seems like they're contradicting themselves in what they are saying. I was watching somebody again a few weeks back, and literally in like a 30-second, 60-second window, they said one thing. They literally said, well, I've never had this situation come up. I'm not going to name the situation, but they literally said those words. I've never had this situation come up. But then they said, but when it does come up, this is how I deal with it. That's a blurred line. That's a perfect example right there. If you sit there and say straight out that this situation has never come up, but then you say that when it does come up, this is how I deal with it. Not this is how I will deal with it. This is my thinking on it or anything like that. It's never come up, but then in the next sentence, but when it did come up, this is how I dealt with it. This is how I deal with it. Well, which one is it, right? And that's one of those things that I'm talking about. So if you're getting confused listening to something like that, that's where you need to take a step back and say, am I really learning the best way to do this? Does this information make sense? Is it really going to help me get my business off the ground or to the next level? So again, do your part, educate yourself, see if the people that are doing this out there, how long have they been doing it? Are they recycling information? And if they are, does it make sense? Or is it a little confusing? Are there blurred lines? Like I said, a copy of a copy of a copy, right? Is the information actually still relevant to what they're doing? Are they talking about more than one strategy? Or is it like, oh, I'm only focusing on this because what? Because they learned that part of it okay, and that part they copied well, but then other parts they don't know. And so they can only teach that particular aspect, right? So again, this is more about educating yourself. If you want to talk with us about anything that we do, we're more than happy to have a conversation with you. But again, when we're talking about this information here, when we're talking about what you're looking at, are you looking at fresh information? Are you looking at something that's been proven? Are you looking at something that's clear? Or are you looking at those blurred lines, a copy of a copy of a copy?